These guys are ridiculous. These guys are ridiculous.
Now, how about them damn Celtics?
And we are back with another How About Them Celtics video. Sam and I are here recording on Friday, December 22nd, and we are talking about Joe Mazzulla today. The Celtics, the other day, just beat up on the Sacramento Kings. Were close after the first quarter, then they pulled away steadily throughout the game on a night where they were missing Jason Tatum and Al Horford. Celtics just picked them apart at every turn. The Kings couldn't get anything going, and the Celtics offense was unstoppable. 35 assists on 51 made baskets. They absolutely killed the Kings. And after the game, as we're talking about today, Mike Brown, head coach of the Kings, had some very kind words for Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla. Shout out to Noah Dalzell, who posted it on Twitter. Thank you, Noah, stealing your video.
The 18 second chance points, the 30 fast break points. I mean, that's crazy. It's in 55% from the floor, 52% from the 3-point line, 144 points. Give them a lot of credit. Joe Mazzulla kicked my behind on down, and all I can do is take my hat off to him.
Joe Mazzulla.
Joe.
That's what I'm saying. Joe Mazzulla.
From our comments section.
Comments. Celtics fans don't like Joe. Mike Brown said Joe Mazzulla kicked my behind down the road, and then he did. I mean, listen. We've talked about Joe Mazzulla a million times on the podcast. We've talked about it defending him. There was a point last season when the Celtics were down 3-0 in the East where we were like, it's getting shaky here. Then he turned it around in his defense. Obviously the series didn't end the way you wanted it. You can cry Jason Tatum ankle injury. It's not why they lost, but whatever. They were down 3-0, 0-3, I should say. And then they brought it back to a 7-game series, which earn the respect back a little. And then even past that, you look at everything Joe's done this season, the comfortability he's grown to have with the media. His on-court adjustments are very clearly taking shape. His reinvigoration on the defensive side of the floor because he realized they need to know how to play defense, and the creativity he's thrown in with the offense, with the post-ups and the cutting and getting everybody to buy in. Joe Mazzulla is a good basketball coach. He's a personable basketball coach. I think he is a player's first basketball coach, and I think all of those things bode well for this roster.
Yeah, I mean, Joe has certainly looked more comfortable this year. You mentioned the media as like kind of the barometer for how he's feeling. He went on the Reddick pod and talked about how uncertain he was last year at times. He went from going in the building, not talking to anybody, going up the back elevator to having to be the center of attention. He was thrust into the head coach position. And for the most part, he did a pretty good job. Like, there obviously were growing pains. People don't like that he doesn't necessarily call timeout all the time. You want to talk about timeouts? Look no further than Mike Brown, who used all of them in like the first 3 quarters.
I was going to say, pick your poison here, people. Which one do you want?
You get one or the other. You actually never take timeouts, or you use all of them way too early.
The other thing, not to cut you off, but if we want to talk about the timeouts quick, like everyone was harping on the Warriors game where it was like, oh, he didn't call a timeout in that final play, which I know we've both talked about how we're okay with it. Up to that point, if the Celtics had won that game, I was prepared to come on the pod and say, like, Joe Mazzulla's timeouts were really fucking good in this game. Like, they were really good. Every time the Warriors made a run, even like there was one in the third quarter where they tied it up and he called the timeout, but every other timeout before that was they go on a 5-6 point run and bring it to within 5, timeout, get on straight. And for the most part, it worked. At the same time, if you want proof that calling a timeout doesn't always work, it's not magic pixie dust, look at Mike Brown, who called all of his timeouts in the first 3 quarters and was down by 30. Like, it's not a magic solution. And I get if you're mad that Tatum took that final shot and you don't call timeout, but at the same time, like, Steph Curry was still on the floor. If he had called a timeout, Steve Kerr could have made defensive substitutions, all this stuff. They could have gotten a set. Yes. They could have had a defensive game plan. Like, there's so much that goes into it. And I'll be the first to admit it. I know you'll say the same. Joe Mazzulla is smarter at basketball than I am. He knows ball better than I do. He knows ball better than anybody watching.
But he knows more ball.
He knows all the ball. But like seriously, he called great timeouts in the Warriors game. I think he's been much, much, much better at the timeouts this year. But at the same time, I do think there are points in the season where you do have to pick your spots and let the players figure it out for themselves. That will help them grow. I genuinely believe that too. So anyways, not to cut you off completely, but I thought that
I think we've seen a lot of growth from Joe this year too. I mean, I hate the threes as much as the next guy, but I think this season we've seen more of a backup plan for when the threes don't work. And I don't think we saw that last year. We did not see a lot of adjustments. We didn't see other offensive strategies. It was literally just take all the threes. Now, I think the threes that they're taking primarily are much better threes. At least it feels that way. I don't know. I'm not going back in time and remembering what I felt like with what they were doing last year in terms of like were they actually good shots.
I know what you mean, though.
But they also have added the post up thing to their offensive game plan. And you can credit Sam Cassell for that if you want. Maybe some of the assistants are really helping him out in that sense. But it's still another wrinkle to the team. Like when you are an opposing team now, the Celtics are making you work even harder. They're still running their 3-point heavy offense, but they're slowing things down and making decisions easier for their stars, not just Jason Tatum, who has shifted to the post a great deal this year. Even in the Warriors game where I was really upset with the shot selection from him, there were times when he was posting up and they were really trying to attack Curry, and Golden State was gambling by throwing a double at him, and Tatum made the right play almost every single time. They were just kind of unlucky where the threes weren't falling. You had a lot of misses from Hauser, who doesn't usually miss. Horford missed a bunch of threes too. But the post has been such a great weapon. You're even seeing Jaylen Brown, who coming into the season was getting dragged because he doesn't make good decisions. He turns the ball over too much. And for a little while this season, it was true. Over the last 10 games, he's really stepped it up. And he's been used more as a playmaker. Jaylen Brown had, 6 assists in the Kings game? And he turned the ball over, no times? Or was that the Warriors game?
It was one of the two.
He had a very efficient passing game this week. He has taken a step up making his shots. He's been more efficient shooting-wise. And then if you want to take a look at Kristaps, they're doing the same thing with him. Except at times you see them put him at the high post where he can literally just flick the ball over everybody. You saw it in the Kings game after he rolled his ankle. He had a little takeover stretch there. But the way that they're working defenses is making teams sweat. The looks that the shooters are getting from three feel like they're much more clean, more consistently. So credit to Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff for that, because I think the brand of basketball we've seen the Celtics play is a bit more calculated and it's less reliant on everything going perfectly.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, NFL. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including you got spreads, you got your player props, you got over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
I agree. I think the way they've been playing this year is much more even across the board. And I've said this a million times, and we keep saying it. I think their ability to consistently play the same way on offense while defensively making the correct adjustments is important, right? Because you need a balance of continuity plus adjustments. And I think they're finding that on offense and defense end. Whenever we talk about Joe Mazzulla and whenever we talk about him at length, I feel obligated to share this video, because if you don't love Joe Mazzulla after watching him get this pumped up after Jaylen Brown draining this three, like look at this. Like, this makes me want to run through a fucking brick wall for the guy. Like I don't understand how you could, he cares more about basketball, about the Celtics, about this than any of you, than anybody out there. And you could say, oh, I've been a fan for this, but look at him. Look at the way he carries himself. He would die for this team. He has been all in ever since. He admitted on the J. Richard Redick pod, he's like, yeah, the first year I was relying on the players, but because I was learning on the fly. Like, he has been so open, so honest, so vulnerable. Sounds like it's like a weird word to use, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he has been like, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I was thrown into a position I wasn't necessarily ready for, but he has taken that on, implemented his ideals and what he believes to be the correct way of playing, taken what Malcolm Brogdon admitted to be he was the one who designed their defensive scheme that year, and applied it to a completely new roster, which we don't even talk about. Like he had a roster all of last year that he was just getting used to. Then he was handed a completely new one this season with new stars and new pieces to integrate. And they have the best record in the NBA again. Like I can't say, and the playoffs are going to be a huge point of judgment for Mazzulla, obviously, but I can't say enough just how much he's improved. I mean, you heard it from Mike Brown. He kicked his ass, like basically what he said. So shout out Joe, all the credit in the world.
Well, it feels like this season itself has just been a big adjustment in response to the failures of last year. Like I was talking about, like last year, there was no failsafe if things didn't go well shooting. Sometimes the shots just aren't going to fall. And we did talk in C's with Bobby Kravitsky. It was up yesterday.
Yep.
We talked about offense. They are consistently sticking by that game plan. We talked about the blackjack thing a couple times now. And I think it's a really good presentation of this. Sometimes you just have to stick by it, whether it's your timeout strategy, your blackjack strategy, or your offensive strategy. But the great thing about their offensive strategy is it now has multiple layers. On the defensive end, Joe has gotten more creative. You're seeing him use guards like Drew Holiday to cover some of the league's most dominant big guys, and it's worked. It confuses other teams. It gives these bigs a different skill set that they have to battle down low. Drew Holiday's quick hands and strength make it a little bit harder than somebody like Porzingis, who isn't as big of a physical body. He's not jacked, but he's long, and he can have more freedom to roam around, or they use Holiday to roam. There's so many different things the Celtics have done with their defense this year, and I think that's a credit to Joe and his coaching staff too. So big credit to Joe. I think he's done a much better job with this team this year. The team itself seems more prepared to respond to adversity. I was ripshit pissed after the Warriors game. Last year, ripshit pissed after the first Warriors game too. And then what did they do last year? They went out and they collapsed against the Clippers, had a meltdown. This year, they follow up the meltdown against the Warriors with a dominant win over Mike Brown's Kings. So good for them. That's growth.
Huge for the Celtics. Huge for Joe. Credit to him. Credit to the Celtics and Joe for bringing in the correct assistant coaching staff as well. We didn't even talk about that. Like, we can't ignore the fact that he's got a much better coaching staff this year. But I also think it's important to note that he built that staff. This isn't, oh, well, now he's got assistant coaches helping him. No, they built that. He didn't have the guys he necessarily wanted or was ready for last year, and now he didn't. You heard the broadcast. I forget if it was Scal or Drew Carter talking about it last time. He's like, yeah, after the Warriors game, Joe Mazzulla and DJ McClay just spent the whole bus ride talking about how they could improve on defense. Like, Joe lives, breathes, and sweats Celtics basketball right now, and it's I don't understand the people who are saying fire Joe Mazzulla still. I still get it on random tweets. It's the laziest form of criticism in my opinion.
Know this, you've said it all the time. The consistency is important too. You can't just keep giving them a new coach every year.
Yes.
Had they fired Joe last spring, this year would have seen the fourth head coach in 4 seasons.
Yep.
You just can't have that. You have a team that's ready to compete for a championship. You have to give them some kind of continuity. And I don't think Mazzulla was necessarily bad enough for you to be like, it's worth doing that. It's worth breaking it up. It's worth resetting it again. Now you're seeing the dividends of him getting more time to brainstorm, to scheme, to develop game plans with this group. And it's working. So yeah, good for him. Who doesn't love to see a Rhode Island guy succeed?
There you go. All right, chat. Comments, not chat. Let us know what you think. Joe Mazzulla is here. Let us know your thoughts. I assume it's going to be a very heated comment section. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to How About Them Celtics, and I'll let Sam take it out.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of these updates. We have Talkin' C's with Bobby. We have the full-length pods, which will be out, one dropping Sunday morning for you, a little Christmas Eve special. Then you're going to have any kind of game recap will also be on the channel. So, the Clippers game will be part of the pod tomorrow, but if there was no pod, you would get a video for that. And then little rumor breakdowns or film breakdowns along these lines will also be there too. Also, every game, half hour before, we're here doing a pregame stream, so come hang out. You can find us on Spotify and Apple too. Our audio versions of full-length pods and game recaps will be there. Audio version only, but you can follow us and leave a 5-star review, and those will go right to your feed. You can also reach out to us via email, hbtcpod@gmail.com. We go through the emails every podcast. We do appreciate all of the takes and input you guys have. You can also find us on social media at How About Them C's, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Facebook is just the name of the podcast. Our pregame streams are there as well as YouTube. They're also on Twitter. I don't know why I never say that, but they are on Twitter. And you can actually interact on Twitter now. You can leave comments again, which is a W. You can follow Jack on Twitter, where the streams will also be, at JackSimoneNBA. And you can follow me, where the streams will also be, at Sam LaFrance. That's it for us. Bye.
Tic-taco. Come on.
Tackle